Okay, welcome guys. We're going to be dealing tonight with footwork as it pertains to Krav Maga. We're going to deal with some of the fundamentals, nothing too complicated. But beyond that, are there other ways of moving? Are there other ways of using your feet? Yes, there are, and there are hundreds, I think, probably maybe more. But I'm going to pick out 2 or 3 tonight that you can practice, try for yourself, and just see how they feel. One of them is, I call it the turning step. I have no idea what the actual term for it is, but the turning step is very, very useful to us. And it comes from Aikido and a couple of other martial arts like traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. And the turning step works like this. If somebody is approaching me or attacking me and I sidestep and I stay in my crouch like this, there comes a point where he's moving past me and I have to now adjust my body to where he's going to be. And in doing that, I'm actually inadvertently switching my stance, which I could do. But what if I want to get this leg out of the way? The turning step is the answer. What I'm doing is I'm putting all my weight on this front leg and I'm swinging the back leg around. Think of a geometry set or a math set where you take the compass and you just draw a circle with it. The point of the compass stays stuck in the paper, the pencil rotates around it, and that's essentially what I'm doing. My front foot sticks and the back foot swings like that. So it's a simple concept, but not easy to apply if somebody is rushing you or attacking you. But it's good to practice this, because I may be in a position where, for example, somebody is rushing me and I choose to step that way, in which case it's easy. My back leg, my right leg is already at the back. So it's a short side step and a big swing of the back leg like that to allow me to accommodate where he's going to be. But what if I'm forced to move that way because of furniture, direction of weapon, direction of person, whatever it is? Now I need to be able to move my back foot across and come almost parallel, and from there swing what was my front foot around like that and actually change my stance. Remember what I said, for beginners we don't like to change the stance. Keep one leg in front all the time. But as you grow into that and as you're comfortable with it, get used to the fact that in certain circumstances you may need to switch feet as you crouch and turn, especially with the turning step. And there's a lovely drill which you can practice to get a handle on the turning step, which I still do to this day. And I think it's a great one to just practice in terms of balance, rooting yourself and being agile at the same time. The turning step drill looks like this. And I'm hoping you guys can see me okay from there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a step forward with my right foot, in other words my rear foot over here, and as I step forward I'm going to reach my same side hand out. So right foot goes forward, right hand goes out. And it's as though I'm reaching out and holding somebody by the hand like that, and I'm going to now step around them. But as I do, I swing the back leg right around, so I'm doing this. I don't know if you guys can see that. Now I'm going to step forward with my left foot, and from there the left hand comes out. And now I swing around that way, and my right leg goes to the back. You don't need to assume a fighting stance or anything. It's a simple rotary drill that enables you to get used to stepping in and swinging around like that. Now, to do the drill properly is a huge amount of fun, because you need to keep your hand stationary. So think of grabbing a pole or grabbing somebody's hand and not waving your hand around. Keep it right there. That's your pin point, your center point. So I'm stepping in. My hand stays there, my foot stays right there, and everything else swivels around that as I move. The other trick to this, and the other factor that I think makes it really powerful and good to practice, is that as you step, you want to keep your head at the same height throughout the entire movement. If I step and I bounce up and down like this, then there are various points in that movement where I'm completely off balance and can easily be pushed over. One of the hallmarks of somebody who is really good at fighting, someone who's really good at defending themselves, is that when they crouch, they don't bob up and down, they don't jump around. They glide. And this is one of the key things we teach. There's a paradox in movement as we teach it. The paradox is I want to be rooted to the ground at all times, so that if somebody hits me or pushes me, I can quickly and instantly distribute my weight downward and root myself. I must be incredibly hard to push over. By the same token, if I disengage myself, I want to be very, very light-footed and able to move nimbly and quickly in any direction. So to do that, the mantra remains the same. Your head does not change height. As soon as my head starts changing height and I wobble or bob up and down when I move, at certain points I'll be rooted, and at certain points I'll be uprooted. Whereas if I root myself by crouching down slightly, you don't need to do it to an exaggerated degree. You know, you may not have the world's best knees, so just a little sit is okay. If I'm just crouching slightly and I take that step, I'm going to do that drill one more time. And I'll do the turning drill where I do this. Notice my head. My goal is to keep my head at the same height throughout the entire movement as I do that. And if I do that, you'll find that at every nuance, every stage of the movement, your feet are nimble, so you can quickly change direction in mid-swing if you want to. But at the same time, you're rooted to the ground. It's incredibly hard for someone to sweep your foot and take you by surprise. So turning step is a lovely drill to practice. I would say it's one of the fundamentals in our system of Krav Maga, apart from the T-Rex, that everybody should practice. And again, if we look at application, where do we apply that? Primary example, one more time, hook and lock. If I'm stepping in and I'm hooking somebody to my chest, it's not just a step in and kind of try and staple into my chest. I'm stepping in and using the swing of that back leg like a pendulum to create momentum in my body, to pin their arm against my chest. Does that make sense, guys? At a more advanced level, as you play with this, you'll find that you can step and strike at the same time. As a beginner, we tend to step and then strike, whatever you're going to do. As you grow more confident and more advanced, you'll be able to strike almost simultaneously as you step, and that's really important. Why is it important? Because if I'm standing still and I throw a strike, the strike is limited by the strength I can summon through flexing my muscles. It doesn't matter how strong I am. This is as hard as I can hit if I'm rooted to the ground, because everything has to come through the musculature of the body. But if I'm moving slightly, even a little bit, now I've recruited the mass of my body. Instead of just being the muscle strength, or lack thereof, and the weight of my arm and the speed of my hand, I'm now taking my 120 kilos of body weight and I'm kind of sliding it in, recruiting it into that movement and striking. And there are two ways you can practice striking and moving. And we come back to those two basic steps. The first basic step, of course, is the T-Rex. And in the beginning, what you want to do is just slide forward, assume your position, and from there strike, do something. Boom, even if it's just, palm strike to the face or whatever you're going to do. And once you've done that and you can do it well, now practice doing it as you land. So as you drop your weight into that final sit, the handle's already flying out. And finally, once you've got that, then start throwing it halfway through. Because then not only are you recruiting your body mass to add power to the strike, but of course the hand is traveling even faster, because I now have the forward momentum of the body, or the speed of the body moving forward, plus the accelerated speed of the hand coming out. And that's really important. In a high-speed fight for your life, where people are trying to hit you, you're trying to hit them, calling each other names, it happens very, very quickly. And we need to be able to strike and parry and deal with things instinctively. And we develop instinct, no one wants to hear this, but we develop instinct through lots and lots of repetition and lots of practice. The good news, though, is that it doesn't have to be physical practice. You can develop skill by visualizing. And to give you a very simple example, one of the key ways of increasing your hand speed is just to visualize your hand going quicker than it does. Picture it flashing out like lightning and start practicing that way and see what happens to your nervous system and to your neural integration in your brain and how it affects your hand speed and the way your body moves. So back to stepping and striking. As I said, the basic is to slide forward, and once you've gotten that, then you can slide forward and strike at the same time. Multitude of strikes, whatever you're doing. Then we can go on to the turning step. So the turning step works almost the same way. I'm not going to do a full turning step where I turn like this and then try and hit somebody. That's a bit silly and overreaching. But what you can do is think of doing half a turning step. So instead of swiveling all the way around like that, think of going halfway or a quarter of the way. I'm sliding the front foot forward, I'm sliding the back foot around, and roughly at this point, as I've got some spin of the body going, that's when I can use my hand to strike, for example. So I can either set myself and then hit the guy, whatever I'm going to do, or as I'm landing, I can now drop that in, or once you're used to that, I can now launch it halfway through. And at that point it becomes really, really fast, and the power again is amplified. Not only because of the body moving, but because of the body spinning. So I've created forward momentum with my step, I've created spin momentum with my hip and my shoulder doing that, and the acceleration of the hand going out. And that can be applied to pretty much anything. Once I understand the principle, it's not just a simple movement like that. I could be parrying somebody punching me, and as I step I use the other hand to take their hand away, like that, and now I use the spin step or the turn step to add power to that parry. And the nice thing about using the spin step or the turn step is that when I do that, it's almost like corkscrewing up the body. Think of an elastic band when you twist it tight and you let go. It suddenly snaps back into shape. And that's really what we're doing. If somebody is throwing a punch or presenting a weapon or something, and I step and I spin like that to take the weapon away, there's a chain reaction traveling in a spiral down through my body to my feet. And it doesn't stay there. It bounces back up. So I can either parry and then set myself and then try and hit him again, or I can use the spin out. From that movement, it goes down to the foot, comes straight back up into the hand. That's a very basic example. But it puts you in a position where you can react instantly, use far less energy, and induce far more force and speed just by stepping. And understanding that the step is the engine that drives your hip, which of course translates into shoulder and chest momentum, and hand speed and hand power. Alright, what other steps are there? What other modes of stepping or moving are there? I spoke about agility and rootedness. We want to stay rooted all the time, but there are times when I may need to unroot myself from the floor. Why would I want to do that? In the event of, let's say for example, he's pulled the knife and he goes, he stabs toward my stomach or my chest like that. Now, for the guys who've been doing this for a little bit longer, you know that our standard response to something like that is to banana the body. We throw the hips back like that, and we're either going to use the arms to parry or an arm to parry, or we're going to slip it past the body using the arm like that. But the most important thing here is that the hips move. Because if I step forward and try and parry a knife, for argument's sake, then I'm moving my stomach closer to the target, or closer to the knife, should I say. If I step forward, the knife is coming directly from my stomach. So I want to move my body out of the way. And to do that, I need to do a hop step. The jumping step or hopping step is not something you want to do all the time, but it may be necessary. If somebody is stabbing rapidly at me, or whatever the case may be, I'm avoiding a swing at my knees with a baseball bat, then I can't slide, I can't be dignified about it, I need to get junk out of the way. Okay. So to do that, I actually initiate the movement from my hips. And there's a cute little secret in there in terms of developing striking force as well. Let's take the example of somebody who is stabbing at me with a knife. I'm doing this from the side so you can kind of see what I'm doing with my hips. What I want to do is both feet hop back about half a ruler's length, just like that. So very much a booty bump, like I'm hitting somebody behind me with my ass. Okay. As I do that, my feet move, so they leave the ground, but they root themselves very, very quickly. It's a short hop. But the most important thing is what happens to my upper body when I do that. Because if I'm just stepping back and bending forward, there's no real translation of energy or momentum or power into the upper body. But if I'm doing this, then as the hips go back, the front of the body or the top of the body comes forward. I'm using that backward momentum to translate into forward fold, which translates into greater downward force. It means that if I'm only trying to use arm strength to block somebody who is trying to stab me, then it depends on how strong he is. But if I do that with my hips, and I use the footwork to induce a wave of energy, a wave of momentum and power through the body, it means that that block turns into a strike. It's a dynamic whipping motion that actually impacts his arm and may knock the knife out, and is a whole lot more powerful. Because now it's not just the weight of my arm or the strength of my tricep, it's the weight of my upper body and my entire body doing that as a hop. So there's an example of how we could turn that into a generation of power just by hopping the feet. But not every fight is somebody trying to stab you in the stomach, is it? What about something different? What about someone kicking at you? How do we deal with that? Depending on what level you're at, you'll know that sometimes we will, slide in to absorb the kick, and at the same time we'll attack the person. You'll know that sometimes we'll just, shield up, and sometimes we'll evade that kick. We may, check it using the shin and the forearm, depending on what he's throwing. But sometimes we'll just make it go past, and the way we do that is exactly the same way. We do that. We just throw the hips back. Now, if I know that my hands can move down and block someone with a knife, for example, could I use the same principle to reach over somebody's kick and strike them in the face? Or perhaps even strike down onto the knee or onto the leg as it goes by? It's possible. That requires practice and timing. So, don't just do it lightly. Practice with a partner, make sure that you understand how it works. The hopping step can also be used to bridge the gap between you and an opponent. You may have someone who is threatening you or fighting you, and you need to move in on them very quickly. A couple of simple examples. He's trying to hit you or grab you, but he's not within easy range. He's kind of hopping around you. It's like a boxer. He's moving around and moving his head forward. He throws a strike and he moves back, and he's tricky to catch. And the counsel there is that we stay in a sliding, gliding stance, but at a certain point, just watch for the point at which his feet hit the floor. And from there, all you want to do is just leap. So we're using the same principle as the sliding stance, the shuffle, or the shuffle step, should I say. We're taking the shuffle step, and instead of shuffling, we're doing a little leap where the feet leave the ground just that much. It's not a big jump up and down. And once again, I try and keep my head level. So I'm not jumping like a kangaroo. I'm leaping, but in a horizontal plane. Because the moment I leap up, I'm dissipating kinetic energy all over the place. It costs me energy, and it robs me of potential forward momentum. Whereas if I'm leaping forward like that, there's a small head movement up and down, but I'm trying to focus most of it there. And that allows us to get in very quickly into an opponent. I would use that against someone who is trying to pick me off. He's dancing around, maybe throwing punches, or he's kind of antagonizing me, trying to do something to see how I react. And our goal is to get really close, really quick. Where else could you use that? Let's take an example that's not often given. Somebody is holding up at gunpoint, God forbid. Now, we train most commonly for someone who is holding a gun within arm's length. They're kind of over here, or the gun is against the body, because realistically, that's the best chance you have to disarm somebody. Why would you want to disarm somebody who's further away? Well, there are a couple of reasons. He may be holding up at gunpoint while a member of your family is being hurt, and you may not have a choice. I've just got to get to that gun. So we can practice the lunging or jumping step. And obviously against someone who's wielding a weapon, I do not want to jump straight in like that, because the reflex will be that he'll pull the trigger or stab with a knife, and I'll get hurt. So now we're going to combine the shuffle, the jumping step, and the turning step all in one. I want to jump in, but I also want to jump in around the ball, so I'm doing that. And now this gives me added reach, because as I come in, something very interesting is happening. Not only am I creating forward momentum, but the whip of my hip as I move and my shoulder means that I get there faster, so I'm accelerating the front foot like that. I'm becoming less of a target because my body is now side on. I can reach a whole lot further. I'm moving literally, you probably can't gauge it from where you're looking on the screen, but I'm moving from where I am here to a good 1.5 meters forward reasonably quickly. It's not guaranteed, but it gives me a fighting chance against someone who's wielding a weapon. It also induces momentum in my lead hand. So I could use that as a way of getting into a wrist to grab a firearm or knock away a weapon prior to moving in. It also allows me to hit somebody. Trying to think of an example, but if I need to get around an obstacle and hit somebody, it may be that he's repeatedly kicking toward me to try and keep me away. And I read his kick and I move around the kick and step in to get to the eyes or the face or whatever it is. it puts me in a position where I have a chance at getting to an opponent. So greater forward momentum, increased reach, and of course much more power through the hand because of the whip of the body as we move. What about martial arts like Taekwondo, which is a kicking art really? Martial arts like Jeet Kune Do, if you don't know these, don't worry about them. But very often those martial arts, and a lot of kickboxing as well, they tend to fight sideways. They fight like this. Because, why? They're presenting less of a target. They can throw very easy side kicks and high kicks from there, and they can slide and shuffle. Now, we don't often do that, but there will be circumstances where we will employ a sideways sliding step. For our purposes, we always remember that we're not fighting one person. Even if we're facing one opponent, in the back of your mind should be the possibility that he may have other buddies. He may have backup. And if he's, if I'm engaging with somebody here and I'm so focused on him that I allow someone to rush me from the side, then I'm in a very poor position. So we need to be able to throw kicks to the side and to the front, and even strikes with the hands that are led by stepping. So let's talk about sideways stepping for a moment. I may be in a position where I'm minding my own business, whatever it is, at the ATM, and somebody rushes me from the side. For me to change position from here and swivel in order to deal with him here may take far too long. So in a situation like that, what I would do typically is a side step, either a side step away, like that, and it's very, very simple. I'm going from a kind of almost semi-neutral stance, where I'm looking toward the threat, and I'm simply stepping like that and bringing my feet together momentarily. So there's something we also see in the karate katas, isn't it? They stand in these fancy, foot positions, and they bring their feet together, and they slide out, and they do fancy, funny things that aren't always understood. But there's a purpose behind that, and we use it too. So by bringing the foot back, what I'm doing is I'm actually creating an arc upward for my foot to travel. So specifically to throw a side kick from this position to stop somebody, perhaps a side kick into their knee, a side kick into their groin or their hip. So I can do this either advancing or retreating. If somebody rushes me from the side, or I need to clear space from the side, then I bring my foot in, my knees stay bent, and as this foot comes in, it circles up toward my knee. So I'm standing almost like a crane, on one leg. And from here, I throw the foot out to the side, boom, and I kick from there. Okay. The goal when you do a side kick, by the way, is to kick with the blade of the foot and the heel, not the flat of the foot. So you want to turn your foot down like that. Don't know if you guys can see that. You want to turn the foot down. And you want to draw as far as possible a straight line between head, shoulder, hip, and foot. So try not to do that, if at all possible. Think of sending it out in a straight line. But that's, by the way, we're not talking about kicking tonight. We're talking about footwork. Okay. So that footwork, that slide step, has various applications. If I'm sliding in and kicking out like that to evade somebody, then that's great. Where else could I use that? I could use it in an ambush. An ambush means that I'm taken completely by surprise. I'm standing flat-footed, I've got nowhere to go, and the guy's in my face, he's running at me, he's doing whatever, trying to hit me with a stick. I don't always have time to prepare for an altercation and get to here. I may be caught right here, in which case the simplest way to evade somebody is with that side step. I just simply slide one foot and the other foot follows it. It's a little bit of a dip. It's like I'm bringing my feet together and bending my knees, and that buys me time to get my hands up and into a ready position. It's a transition that is very powerful and gets you out of the way of an attack. If I take that sideways step and I flip my hip around, then the sideways step from there turns into a turn step as well. And of course that's a great way to evade somebody if you're caught by surprise. The other way that you can use that side step is if I'm attacking. I typically would not face someone like this in a fight or in a self-defense situation, because I don't do Kung Fu, I don't do Taekwondo, I don't, so for me to only attack from here, I'm not a big fan of this. It's very easy for someone to, hit me here or hit me here without me seeing it. I'd rather have good peripheral vision all around. But in certain circumstances, I may have evaded somebody. He kicks or stabs or whatever he's doing toward me, and I'm in a position where I've taken the attack past me and I'm here. There's no time for me to reset and hit him. If I'm here and I can attack him, then what I do is I bring in the back foot, like that, By the same token, the front foot comes out, and I kick from there. So these are not advanced concepts. There are only so many ways you can move 2 feet. We're not doing complicated dances. But what we're doing is connecting the dots between a neutral stance, a ready stance, a stance where we're now able to move or slide forward and backward and side to side, a stance where we can easily step around the ball and start swiveling, even if it's just a little swivel to begin with. And then we can take that and turn it into a bigger swivel or a big turn if we have to. And just to come back to the turning step, one of the applications of that as well is that I may be fending off somebody in front of me. I may have, sort of hit him and he's dealt with, but somebody is rushing me from behind and I need to turn around really quickly. For me to try and do this or hop around is difficult. But if I know that I can just bring my feet together and swing the back foot out like that, it allows me to evade and turn without losing balance and deal with the person behind me as well. It's all highly theoretical until you put it into practice against partners and play with it a little bit. It then starts to make sense and it all comes together. The key thing is that the feet act as the engine. Where the feet go, you create momentum. The momentum is amplified through the waist or the hips, and like a whiplash, it comes out through the upper body, through the shoulder, and through the arms and hands. So guys, those are the fundamentals of standing, stepping and moving. There's nothing complicated about them. The most important thing is to understand the relationship between where your upper body goes and what your feet are doing, and the relationship between being light and agile on your feet at all times, but still being rooted to the ground. I may be chest to chest with somebody who I'm gouging and biting and hitting and what have you, and somebody grabs me or is about to grab me from behind, and there's no space to move. In a case like that, it's acceptable to go from here to simply put your back foot behind this foot, a little bit further on the toes. I don't know if you guys can see that. My toes go there, and I just hook my body around. And that puts me in a position where I'm now back in a strong fighting stance so I can deal with the person in front of me. I'm going to do it from this angle so you can see what I'm doing. If I'm standing here, I'm contending with the person in front of me, I'm dealing with them. Somebody's right over here and I need to deal with them as well. What I'm doing is I'm shifting that foot across, and the moment it touches the ground, I whip my hip around. Again, the hip movement is really important here. So that I wind up facing in the direction I need to in order to deal with this person in front of me, so that I can neutralize them as well. It's worth noting, guys, just finally, that the same principles apply no matter what you're doing, whether you are using a baton, whether you're using a knife, whether you're using a handgun. Hit somebody with a stick. I don't need to do anything fancy. I go from my home position and the feet do exactly what I've been doing. If I'm going to use a knife and do an overhead stab, for example, or a side stab, the same principle applies. If I'm stepping forward with a handgun because I need to see around a corner, I don't need to do fancy things. I'm just going to shuffle and do a slight turn step and work from there. Same principles apply. Right, those are the fundamentals. We'll continue with this. And that is all for tonight. Thank you guys.